This rather long sermon also is found in the long-length discourses of the Buddha, Digha Nikaya. So, the name of this particular sutta is Sakkapañha Sutta, which means questions of the god Sakka. That means, in this sutta, god Sakka asked a series of questions on the Buddha. And Buddha answers them. So this is what happened at that time. The Buddha was staying in the land of the Magadhans, that is east of Rajagaha. There was a Brahmin village named Ambasanda. And north of this Brahmin village, there was a mountain. The name of the mountain was Vediyaka. And in this mountain, there was a cave named Indasala. It is in this cave that Buddha was residing at that time. And God Sakka, you know God Sakka? God Sakka is the ruler of both the Chatu Maharajika and Thavatingsa heavenly worlds. He ruled both these worlds. He was the king of these heavenly worlds. And one day, it so happened, a keen interest arose in me. Like God Sakka, he thought, I want to go see the Buddha. It would be nice if I could go see the Buddha. So, in a split second, he vanished from his heavenly realm, heavenly world. Not alone, he first called his attendant, Panchasika. Panchasika was a musician deva. Musician means Gandharva, we say. Gandharva means they are to please other deities by performing music, dancing, entertainment. So they were very skilled in their trade of dancing, performing music and all that. And he had a harp also with him, Panchasika. He is called Panchasika because he wore a turban. So the turban had 5 knots on top of it. So that is why called Panchasika. So together with Panchasika and a retinue of devas, thousands of devas, his ministers, entourage, God Sakka vanished from the heavenly world and reappeared in the village near the Mount Vediyaka. So it says here, just like a strong person would extend his hand or bend it back, retract in a split second, because it doesn't take so long for a person to do that. In a moment, a strong person can extend or recoil his. Likewise, in a split second, God Sakka, along with all these thousands of devas, retinue of devas, he vanished from the heavenly world and reappeared near the Mount Vediyaka. And because so many devas at once appeared near the mountain, there was a lot of light, because from the devas' body, unlike ours, there is bright light, dazzling light emanating from the devas' body. So imagine thousands of devas being near the mountain. How would it be? So the people of the village, they were astonished and terrified by seeing this sight. They were looking from the village towards the mountain, and they saw like if the mountain was on fire, as if it was burning. It was like the mountain was ablaze because of the light emanating from the bodies of the thousands of devas that was there. But God Sakka was a bit wary of approaching the Buddha who was in the cave. He said, it is not proper for us to go without announcing ourselves, because the Buddhas, they dwell in peace and calm. The Buddha might be meditating. So he thought, I should not go there at once. So he called Panchasika and said, Panchasika, try to approach the Buddha in some way so that we can communicate with him. So the Panchasika, the musician Deva, he took his harp in his hand and he went near the cave. Not so near, but not so far. Just so that Buddha could hear when he played the harp. And he couldn't think of anything that he can do to get the attention of the Buddha. So what he did was, he sang a loud song. Okay? So there are verses of what he sang. Basically what's there is, you can read the Sutta. Like I just summarize it. He tells of the qualities of the Buddha, qualities of the Dhamma, qualities of the Sangha. In between he praises this girl. Girl means another deity who was in love with another Deva. But Panchasika loved her and wanted to win over her heart. So what he would do, he would praise the Buddha, he would praise the Dhamma, the Sangha, the Arhats, and in between he praises the Deva. So the deity, because he loved the Buddha, once he had praised, later on he says, once he said these verses, Buddha also listens and Buddha comes and says, Panchasika, it's very nice. Your tune, your melody and your voice matches very nicely. When did you first sing this? So he said, this is why I made these poems, this song, so I could win over the heart of this deity. But at the moment, that moment she was in love with someone else, but I was able to win her over. So even in the Devas world, these things happen. Because why? It's a world of sensual pleasures. And it says here that he actually dumped the Deva who she was with at that moment. And they seems to have had a one-night fling, it seems. So they were together for one night and he said then one day and he said, we didn't meet again. So in this way, somehow he was able to communicate with the Buddha. And then he said, then God sent a message, okay, now it's time. Now tell that we are here. So Panchasika says, Buddha, Sakka and all the retinue of gods are here and they venerate you, they respect you, they pay their homage to the Buddha. So the Buddha said, may Sakka and all the Devas be well and happy. May they be blessed because all beings of this world, they crave for happiness, said the Buddha. So in this way, Buddha consented, gave his permission for them to approach. Then only Sakka, along with the retinue of Devas, the ministers and all his attendants, came near the cave. And the moment the Devas entered the cave, so it's a small cave, no? But because of the divine powers of the Devas, the whole cave got lighted. And in a cave, there are, the wall is, of course, rock. And there are jagged edges. All these edges were smoothened. And the inside of the cave became bigger. So there is more space that all the Devas could very easily be in there. And it was no longer dark in the cave. That is the divine power of the Devas. So in this way, Sakka approached the Buddha, paid his respect, and also so did the other Devas. Then Buddha says it is surprising, Sakka. He actually says his name Kosya. Kosya, that is another name for Sakka. It is surprising that you came because you are a very busy person. So we see that even Devas, they are very busy because it is also a world of sense pleasures. There are obligations, duties you have to perform. So then Sakka says, yes, it is true. I have been wanting to come to see the Buddha for a long, long time. In fact, actually, I did come once. Once when Buddha had just attained enlightened, I came to see the Buddha, but Buddha was in deep meditation. And I did not want to interrupt at that moment. But There, when I came there, there was another deity. He was paying homage to the Buddha. He was worshipping you and being there in silence. And I did leave a message saying that I came here and God Sakka would like to pay respect to the Buddha. Didn't he say that I did so? Then Buddha said, yes, yes. Actually, she did say that you came. And also when you were about to leave, when the wheels of your chariot turned, I heard the sound and I rose from meditation, said the Buddha. So in this way, somehow they had not met until then. Like this was the first time that he got the chance to actually come see the Buddha. And God Sakka then says, Blessed One, before I was born to the heaven world, from the devas that were there before, I have heard that when a Buddha arises in this world, that the number of deities increase. There are more and more deities coming to the heavenly world from the human world. But when the Buddha says Buddha's dispensation decline, it's the opposite. Less people are born in the heavenly worlds, more are born in the planes of misery. That is how it is happening these days. When the dispensation is declining, then they are no longer practicing the Dhamma, not being virtuous, offering dana, not practicing the normal eightfold path. Then what happens? They are reborn after death in the four bad destinations. Very few are born among the devas. But in the Buddha's dispensation is time, with the rising of a Buddha, many are born among the devas. God Sakka said, I had heard of this from devas who had been there. It was something that they talked among themselves. But I know this now for a fact. Because Buddha rose in this world, many are born among the devas world, said God Sakka. And he went on to say a story of a certain deity. Now his name is Gopaka. But in her former life, she was a lady who had gone for refuge to the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, and she kept the precepts properly, led a virtuous life, practiced the noble path, attended to Sangha, practiced generosity, gave alms. And because of that, also, though she was a lady, she was not attached to her femininity. She gave up her femininity, it is said, and instilled herself within masculinity. That means she didn't delight in the pleasures or the way, in the way a lady would walk, because a lady like to dress herself up. Like there are certain things like comes with femininity. She didn't like them. And normally when you practice celibacy, when you are virtuous, actually they are practicing also developing a very strong attitude, strong character. So that helps you to be born as a gent, like a male deva. And in this case, he was born as a male deva, not a female deity, because he went for it to Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha and kept the precepts and gave up the tendency to femininity and wanted to, like she had the thoughts instilled in masculinity. She was born as a son of God Sakka after she passed away from the human world, it is said. And when she was born, because in the human world she was called Gopika. Now once born in the heavenly world, she was Gopaka, son of God Sakka. So God Sakka has many sons. So in the heavenly worlds, they spontaneously appear. That's how it happens. Not like in the human world. So now say if God Sakka is standing here, suddenly a deva would appear in his place. And that is his son. That's how it happens in the devas. So in this way, she was called the Gopaka deity Gopaka. That was his name. So one day, this Gopaka Deva, when he was waiting for the Gandharva, the musician Devas to come and play music for him. He noticed among these musician Devas, there were three he recognized from the human world, from his past life. And unfortunately, he saw three monks that he had attended to and gave dana, who actually taught him the Dhamma, was now musicians Devas. They had born in an inferior state to that of his, because now they are coming to entertain him. And Gopaka deity says, oh, this is something that I don't want to see. This is something I should not have seen. These are monks who taught me Dhamma. Now they are coming to please me with sensual pleasure. Imagine now I am teaching, like you are born in the Devas, so then I come to play music, the harps for you and dance for you. Wouldn't you be shocked to some extent? So she said, okay, you taught us the Dhamma, but didn't you learn and practice? In which direction were you looking when Buddha taught the Dhamma? Likewise, she accused to arouse mindfulness, to make them ashamed of their state. And that worked. That worked for 2 devas at least. So they gave up the sensual pleasures and they practiced samadhi. And once they passed away from that deva's lives, they were born in the Brahmaverse. Brahma Purohita Brahmaverse. 2 devas. But the other deva, he could not give up the desire, the attachment to the sensual pleasure. So in this way, God Sakka, he tells the Buddha of this incident that happened. And he says, it is because of the Buddha that all this is possible. Because those monks, though they had been heedless to some extent, because they had still practiced the Dhamma, they were able to give up the sensual pleasures then and there, and to surpass all the heavenly worlds and be born among the Brahmas. This was all possible because of what? Because of the Buddha. In this way, God Sakka praises the Buddha. And Buddha says, okay, this God Sakka. Buddha can see the past lives of the God Sakka. He says, God Sakka has been born in the heavenly worlds for many lives. So for many past lives, continuously, he has born in the heavenly worlds. So Buddha says, therefore, he is wise enough to understand the Dhamma. So I should teach him the Dhamma in a way he understands. If he were to ask me questions and I answer, then surely he will realize the Dhamma, taught the Buddha. So Buddha tells God Sakka, if you have any questions to ask me, you can ask me and I will answer. So then there are other questions and the answers. That is the Sakkapañha Sutta. Questions of God Sakka. So having been granted the opportunity by the Buddha, Sakka asked the first question. What is the first question he asked? Blessed One, what fetters bind the gods, humans, the Asuras and Nagas and the Gandharvas, that is the musician Devas, and any of other diverse creatures? So of all the beings in this world, what fetters bind them? So that though they wish to be free of enmity, violence, hostility, hate, they still have enmity. They still are prone to violence, hostility and hate. There was so much of anger in this world. But there is no peace. Why is that? Why the calamity? Why the violence? Asked God Sakka. A wise question. So this was the first question he posed to the Buddha. So Buddha said, Lord of gods, the fetters of jealousy and stinginess bind the gods, humans, asuras, nagas, gandharvas. It is the jealousy and stinginess that binds all the beings in this world. They are overwhelmed by jealousy and stinginess. So therefore, though they wish to be free of enmity, violence, hostility, hate, they can't do so. Why? Because of their jealousy and stinginess. How true is that, no? So, no matter how many peace talks there are in the world, because there are a lot of talk about peace now. There are organizations, there are yearly summits, monthly, annual summits, but still there's violence in the world. Discord is there. Countries clash. There are wars. There are wars within countries. There are militant groups, armed people, and within organizations there are disputes. Within families there are disputes. Why? Because of jealousy and stinginess. There is no peace and calm. You can talk, but to walk the walk, you have to have the qualities. As long as you have jealousy and stinginess within you, when two such people come together, what happens? There will be discord, not concord. There will be disruption, not peace and calm. See how these defilements affect the person and as a whole, the whole world. And Buddha has taught us with regard to stinginess, there are 5 types of stinginess. Say, avasa machirya, like in the sense, if a monk is overly attached to his kuti, so in your case, your house or your dwellings. And kula machirya, that if you are overly attached to your benefactors or your relatives, that is an obstacle in the path. You can't realize the Dhamma. That is a stinginess. Labha machariya, gain, the stinginess to gain things, to want things for you. That is the obstacle. And vanna machariya means that you want to be praised. You crave for praise. And when you don't get it, then you become jealous. Like someone else is praised, you are not praised. You want something for you, someone else gets it. Then there is jealousy and greed. You see? So jealousy and greed in this way create havoc in the world. Then there's Dhamma Machari. Dhamma Machari means stinginess for the Dhamma. That means knowledge in general. So some people, they don't like when other people get educated. Some people want their children to be educated but don't like their other people's children to be educated. Why? Jealousy and stinginess. It is there. Jealousy and stinginess. So if some people learn Dhamma, they don't want to teach Dhamma. You read the very beautiful Sutta, but they don't share that Dhamma knowledge with someone else. Why? They are jealous that they would improve in the Dhamma knowledge. But see, Buddha didn't hide anything. Buddha says, Acharya Mutti. I didn't hide anything. You hiding means, Acharya Mutti means you hide something in your fist. In this way, Buddha didn't hide anything. He taught everything out of compassion. He had no stinginess even with regard to the Dhamma. So in this way, jealousy and stinginess is there. When there is jealousy and stinginess, then there is no peace in this world. Only violence. Okay? So, God Sakka was delighted with this answer. Delighted. Sakka approved and agreed with the Buddha and said, that is so true, Blessed One. That is so true. Hearing your answer, I have gone beyond doubt and got rid of any indecision I had with regard to this. Now I know it is because of jealousy and stinginess that there is this violence, this hate, anger in this world among all beings. That is why there is no peace, there is no concord among all beings. Then he asked another question. But Blessed One, what is the source? What is the origin? What is the birthplace and inception of jealousy and stinginess? He wants to know the origin, the birthplace, the inception of jealousy and stinginess. When what exists is there jealousy and stinginess. When what doesn't exist is there is no jealousy and stinginess. So you want to know the cause. What causes jealousy and stinginess? Then Buddha answers, God Sakka, the like and the dislikes are the source of jealousy and stinginess. When the like and dislike exist, there is jealousy and stinginess. When the like and the dislike don't exist, there is no jealousy and stinginess. So if in this world there is something you like, okay, you like something, and someone else get it, what happens? You feel jealous. Because there is stinginess as well. Stinginess means you want everything for yourself. But when someone else gains that, what happens? You feel jealous. So jealous and stinginess sort of goes hand in hand. Because there are things in the world that you like, when you don't get them, instead someone else gets them, jealousy and stinginess arise. Similarly, there are things that you dislike. And even in the case of a thing that you don't like, if you are a stingy person, when someone else gets it, you are jealous. There may be things that you don't want in your house. Don't like them. But if someone comes and asks, can I borrow that? Do you mind giving that to me? Then stinginess arises you. And you don't want to give it away. You're jealous. So in this way, when there are in this world things that you like and you dislike, there arise jealousy and stinginess. So how true are the words of the Buddha? So if we retain this in our mind and we apply to our day-to-day life, mindfully see this, you can see this happening. Because you have jealousy and stinginess. We all have. That is why we try to practice and eradicate these defilements. Because there are things we like and dislike in this world. Okay? So then jealousy and stinginess arise. Then the next question. When there is, what is the cause of then cause of jealousy and stinginess is there are things that you like and dislike. Then God Sakka asks, but dear sir, what is the source of what is liked and disliked? What is the origin, the birthplace, the inception of the liked and disliked? Why is there things that you like and things you dislike? What is the cause of that? When what exists is there the liked and the disliked. When what doesn't exist is there no the liked and the disliked. So then Buddha answers, desire is the source of what is liked and disliked. So what is the source of desire? So specifically we'll discuss desire. Desire is the source of what is liked and disliked. That means when you have desire, a craving, then there arises the differentiation. Okay, I like these things. I do not like this thing. In this way, as long as you have desire, you will always like certain things and also dislike certain things. So desire is the cause of likes and dislikes. Then God Sakka asks, what is the source of desire? Why does desire arise within us? And then again Buddha answers, thoughts influenced by defilements is the source of desire. When there arise within us thoughts that are influenced by defilements. What are such thoughts? Thoughts that are influenced by defilements. Thoughts of sensual pleasure. Thoughts of ill will. Thoughts of harming others. These are thoughts influenced by defilements. When these thoughts arise within us, there arise desire. When you keep thinking of sensual pleasures, doesn't desire rise in you? Desire rise in you. And then you like and dislike. And when you like, then what happens? Then there is jealousy and stinginess. Then there is whole act of the trouble, the things you would do, the evil things you would do to acquire it. And there is discord, there is violence, anger. Likewise, this is how the whole chain reactions begins. So, the source of desire is the thoughts influenced by defilement. That thoughts of sensual pleasure, thoughts of ill will, and thoughts of harming others. That is why Buddha said, Uppannang vyapada vitakkang nadivaseti. That means when there arises thoughts of, say, ill will, what you should do? You should then and there nadivaseti. You should not submit to those defiled states. You should not concede. Pajahati, you have to abandon. Give them up. Bhyanti karoti, you have to eradicate. Then anabhavang gameti, you have to annihilate. In the same way, uppannan vihinsa vitakkam, when there arise thoughts of harming others, again you have to abandon. You should not concede to them. You have to eradicate and annihilate, said the Buddha. That is the Buddha's advice. Likewise, when there arises within you thoughts of sensual pleasure, you should not concede or submit to them. You should abandon, you should eradicate, you should annihilate these thoughts of sensual pleasure. If not, what happens? There will be desire arising in you. When desire arises in you, there is the liked and the disliked. When there are liked and disliked, then there is jealousy and stinginess. When there is jealousy and stinginess, then there is anger, violence, and all the corruption, all the havoc, the calamities that is there. So then God Sakka asks, what is the source of these thoughts influenced by defilement? That is, thoughts of sensual pleasure, ill will, and thoughts of harming others. What is the source of that? He questions again. So the source of thoughts influenced by defilements is, Buddha says, embracing perceptions that arouse defilements is the source of thoughts influenced by defilements. When you embrace perceptions, the things you perceive, that arouse defilements within you, that triggers a train of thoughts that are influenced by defilements. So the source there is embracing perceptions that arouse defilements. Okay, how does this happen? So this is called, in Pali we say papancha sanya. And it is described in there's a separate sutta called Madhupindika Sutta, how within a person these perceptions arise. Papancha sanya. Buddha goes on to explain, Chakkung paticca rupecha uppajjati chakku viññāna. That means, because of the eye and the form, there arises eye consciousness. Tinnang sangati passo. So unification of the eye, form and eye consciousness, there arises eye contact. Passa paccaya vedana. Because of contact, there arises feeling. Yang vedayati tang sanjanati. What you feel and experience, what you feel, you perceive. Experience, you perceive. Yang sanjanati tang vitakketi. What you perceive, you think of that. That is what happens. When you see a form, you think of that. When you hear a sound, smell, taste a flavor, touch a tangible, what happens? You think of a mind object, there is the thoughts, the vitakka, the implied and applied thought. Yang vitakketi tang papancheti. Papancha sanya sanka samudaya charanti. So, in this way there arises these thoughts influenced by defilements within you. Because of why? Because you embrace perception that arouse defilements. Because when there is contact, when there is perception, the underlying state is always what? Ignorance is there. Not knowing the Four Noble Truths. Because until you become an arahant, until you becoming an arahant means you have full knowledge and understanding of the Four Noble Truths. Then you have completed the Noble Eightfold Path. And you have attained Nibbana. So Nibbana is the place where there is no papancha sanya. That means these perceptions that arouse defilements is there, not there, because there are no defilements once you achieve Nibbana. So that state is free of such perceptions. There are no perceptions there that is coupled with defilement, that is influenced by defilements. So that is why I said it is only when you embrace perceptions that arouse defilements that there will be thoughts influenced by defilements. So generally, like what you have to understand is, as long as there is ignorance, when there is the contact of the eye, the nose, tongue, body or mind, that contact is affected by your ignorance. So your experience, your perception is skewed. And your thought process in turn is defiled. That is why the thoughts are influenced by defilements. When your thought process is influenced by defilements, then what happens? Then desire arises within you. When desire arises, what happens? Then there are likes and dislikes. Then there are jealousy and stinginess. Then there is anger, violence, all of the havoc. Now think of this. This is a process. This is how this happens for every person. Now think of yourself as an individual. Okay? So, say you are a boy or a girl. So you are attracted to the opposite sex. You see, like say, imagine if you are a boy, you see a girl. Okay? Now you have not realized the Dhamma, no? There is ignorance within you. Then the perception of that form, the way you see that, the way you perceive that form, the reality of the form is it is subject to impermanence, change, and fading away. So, but you cling to the beauty, the gratification of that form. Why? The underlying conditions, that there is ignorance. So, the perception is skewed. What is actually something that is subject to impermanence, you see as permanence. That form, that beautiful form. That beautiful girl, the attractive girl. The form that is subject to change, you think it is permanent. The form that will one day be displeasing, you think as be pleasing. So like this, likewise, your perception is skewed. And you think you can control that form, but you can't. So because of this skewed perception, or the perception being influenced by the defilements, then your thoughts are also influenced by defilements. That is why then you will have thoughts about her or about him. What happens? You will have thoughts of sensual pleasure. When there are thoughts of sensual pleasure, then desire arises. You keep thinking of this girl or boy. What happens? Desire arises within you. When desire arises within you, what happens then? There are likes or dislikes. Then you like her. You fall in love with her or him. Once you have fallen in love with him or her, what happens? Then you are jealous and you are stingy. You want him or her to be yours, not someone else's. You can't stand when he or she talks with someone else. You are jealous. And there's stinginess because you want him or to be yours. Or to be yours and no one else can associate or take him or her away from you. And then you quarrel with that person. You quarrel with actually your loved one, your girlfriend, boyfriend, husband or wife. You would quarrel with the person who is trying to take him or her away from you. Doesn't these things happen in the world? It does. On a personal basis and the world at large. Think of, there is a country, a government, say a world superpower. So in this government, there are the decision makers. There is the president, the vice president, and the ministers. See? So these are peaceful. Are they people who have realized the teachings of the Buddha? Or they are ignorant? They are ignorant of the teachings of the Buddha. They have not realized the Four Noble Truths. So their perception is, there are papancha sanya. There are perceptions that give rise to defilements within them. They have their own perception of things. And because of this perception, there arises within them thoughts that are influenced by defilements. Okay? And they would see another country where there are natural resources, say oil or minerals or whatever. So then there are thoughts influenced by defilements. They want to acquire them for themselves, no? So then because of their thoughts influenced by defilements, then desire arises them to get those resources to their country, to have it for themselves. There arises desire. And they are the like and dislike. They want to somehow get it because they like that thing. And therefore they are jealous and stingy. They don't want anyone else to have that resource, any other country or any other person. They want all that for themselves. Therefore, then there is what? Violence in this world. That is why there are wars. That is why there are the fights within militant groups. They arm the militant groups in the country to create political unrest. So they can in this way influence that country and have some sort of control over there. So why? They can feed their jealousy. They can feed their stinginess. And they can have that for themselves. So see how in the global aspect of these things, this all happens when people are defiled. So that is why there is violence in this world. No matter how much peace talks there are, can talk about peace, but in actuality, as long as people are defiled in their minds, they don't understand this, there will not be peace in this world. So in this way, if you think along the lines of the Buddha, think along the teachings of the Buddha, you can see indeed how true are these words. So this is the problem, and now we have understood how these perceptions that are skewed for the Papancha Sanya can trigger this whole chain reaction and cause havoc in a person's life, and in turn, how can it create havoc in the whole wide world itself? So what is the solution? So Sakka asks of the solution now. How does a monk fittingly practice for the cessation of embracing perceptions that arouse defilements? So how do you put an end to this? So the Buddha answers, Sakka, there are two kinds of happiness. I say, that which you should cultivate and that which you should not cultivate. So there are two kinds of happiness. One you should cultivate, the other you should not. And then there are the two kinds of sadness. Sadness which you should cultivate and develop, and sadness which you should not cultivate. Then there are two kinds of equanimity. That which you should cultivate and that you should not cultivate. So what are the two kinds of happiness that you should cultivate and should not cultivate? So there are certain happiness, Buddha says, take happiness of which you know. When you cultivate this kind of happiness, unskillful qualities grow and skillful qualities decline. That means the unwholesome grows and the wholesome declines. This declines when you cultivate certain happiness. Okay, there is happiness you derive from sensual pleasures. Okay, when you do that, what happens? In some instances, your wholesome portion declines, whereas the unwholesome qualities grow. So you should not associate with such happiness. You should not pursue that happiness. And there are certain happiness you should cultivate. What is that? When you pursue that happiness, your wholesome portion grows, while the unwholesome declines. Say you live a virtuous life. You give dana, you practice generosity, you attend to the monks, you learn Dhamma. Likewise, you do good deeds, and you derive happiness from that, don't you? So that sort of happiness helps to develop the wholesome, and it declines the unwholesome. That you should cultivate and practice, said the Buddha. Okay, and Buddha says here, and there is happiness which is freed of applied and sustained thought. That is better than which involves applied and sustained. So that means, of course, there is happiness when you do good deeds, meritorious deeds. There is happiness, but there is a far more superior happiness that is devoid of applied and sustained thought. That is, what is that? The jhana, the second jhana. In the second jhana, there is no applied and sustained thought. So that is far more superior, said the Buddha. Okay? So anyway, what you have to understand is there are two kinds of happiness. One you should develop and cultivate, and the one you should not develop or cultivate. Then Buddha say two kinds of sadness. What are the two kinds of sadness? When you cultivate certain kind of sadness, unskillful qualities, that means the unwholesome grows, whereas the wholesome declines. Then there are certain sadness when you cultivate, the wholesome grows and the unwholesome declines. So how does, what sadness give rise to more unwholesome qualities? Say you are worried about things you did in the past. Before you came across the Dhamma, you may have done bad things now that you regret. If you keep worrying about that, is it a good state of mind to be in? No. Then your unwholesome will develop and your skillful qualities, the wholesome, will decline. So that sort of sadness you should not foster. But there is a certain kind of sadness that is good. Say you try to practice virtue, but it is very difficult for you to keep the precepts. From time and time you break the precepts. It's very difficult for you to retain the teachings of the Dhamma that you learn. But you don't give up. So the actual learning process, the practice, is very difficult for you. So you feel a bit sad. There's some sadness there. But that is good. That sadness is the cause of doing a good deed. So Buddha says that kind of sadness you can cultivate, and because of that it is not going to harm you. It will actually help you to develop your wholesome, and your unwholesome qualities will gradually decline. And one day you can keep the precepts well. You will not worry about that. The practice becomes a bit easy. Likewise. Then in the same way, there are two kinds of equanimity. What is that? So when you practice certain equanimity, cultivate and develop it, unskillful qualities grow and the skillful decline. What is that? So a person who has not heard the teachings of the Buddha, who is ignorant, he also sees forms, sounds, states, tangibles, and he doesn't understand. It might be a thing he doesn't like or dislike, he feels indifferent. But still there is ignorance, and therefore delusion grows when you associate with that equanimity state because of the ignorance. And when delusion grows, the unskillful qualities grow and the skillful decline. So that should not be associated with. Then there is the equanimity which you know that when you cultivate that kind of equanimity, the wholesome grows and unwholesome decline. That means when you see a form and you think of its impermanence, that is, it is subject to suffering and change, you doesn't get attached to it. You feel indifferent, and there is a state of equanimity there. And when you become indifferent and equanimous in this way toward the form, sound, taste, tangibles, and the mind object, then your unwholesome decline and the wholesome grows. So that equanimity you have to develop and cultivate, say the Buddha. And then again it is said there is equanimity that is free of applied and sustained thought, that is far more superior than that is with applied and sustained thoughts. Like in the fourth jhana, there is no thought. It's far more superior than you actually thinking of something and thinking of its impermanence, suffering, and having the state of equanimity there. The equanimity in the state of the fourth jhana is far more superior, says the Buddha. Okay? So in this way, there are happiness, sad, and equanimity state that you should cultivate and you should not cultivate, because you have to mindfully see whether this is conducive for me to foster good qualities, or would they help to decline my good qualities. So in this way, you have to be always mindful. That is the point. That is why you have to practice the 4 establishments of mindfulness. So you know what you should pursue and what you should not pursue. It is with mindfulness that you identify. And Buddha says that is how a monk fittingly practices for the cessation of embracing perceptions that arouse defilements. So that is how you treat the root factor in this way. Then Sakka approved and is delighted. That's so true, Blessed One, that's so true. Hearing the Buddha's answer, I have gone beyond doubt and got rid of indecision. So then he questions with regard to the restraint in the monastic code. Blessed One, how does a monk practice for restraint in the monastic code? That means, how does a monk be virtuous and live in accordance with the monastic code? How we live according to the discipline that is laid out by the Buddha. So Buddha said, God Sakka, I say that there are 2 kinds of bodily behavior, that which you should cultivate and that which you should not cultivate. And there are 2 kinds of verbal behavior, that you should cultivate and that you should not cultivate. And there are 2 kinds of search, that which you should cultivate and that you should not cultivate. Okay? So what are the 2 kinds of bodily behavior? There are certain bodily conduct that when you do so, when you cultivate this kind of bodily conduct, unskillful qualities, the unwholesome qualities grow, the wholesome declines. What is that? When you engage in killing living beings, stealing, sexual misconduct, likewise these bodily conduct, they are conducive of the evil states growing and the wholesome declining. Then there are bodily conduct that when you cultivate this kind of bodily conduct, your wholesome grows. That means you do good deeds, you help others, you do chores in the monasteries. Likewise, there are good deeds, bodily conduct you can do. Refraining from stealing, sexual misconduct, these are also good, wholesome bodily conduct that is conducive to developing your wholesome action. So that you have to pursue, said the Buddha. Then, what are the 2 kinds of verbal behavior that you should develop and you should not develop? There are certain verbal behavior, when you pursue that verbal behavior, what happens? Your wholesome declines and the unwholesome develops. When you speak falsely, you engage in divisive speech, you engage in harsh speech, when you engage in idle chatter. What happens? The unwholesome grows, the wholesome declines. Those type of verbal behavior you should not cultivate, said the Buddha. And there are verbal behavior which causes the unskillful to decline and the skillful to grow. That means you can talk about the Dhamma, talking about the Four Noble Truths, talking kind and compassionate words, talking truthfully, talking for the concord, not discord, talking kind words, amiable words, endearing words. These are all conducive to developing the wholesome, and the unwholesome gradually declines. Those are the 2 kinds of verbal behavior. Then Buddha says there are 2 kinds of search. There are 1 kind of search that you should pursue because they help to develop your wholesome and also decline the unwholesome. So there are certain searches you should avoid. What is searching actually? Okay, you can Google for many things, no? So if you Google for gossip, would that help you to grow your wholesome fraction or unwholesome fraction? The unwholesome fraction grows, the wholesome fraction declines. You can Google for porn. What will happen? The unwholesome grows, the wholesome declines. You can Google for the closest brothel. You can Google for the closest liquor, the tavern or whatever. What happens? The unwholesome grows and the wholesome declines. You can search for friends that will go to you for parties and all those things. You search for friends that will go to the monastery with you. that would like to talk Dhamma with you. What happens? When you search for ignoble people and associate with them, your unwholesome grows and the wholesome decline. If you search for and associate with the noble friends, your wholesome fragrance grow and the unwholesome decline. You search for a Dhamma meetup and you meet with noble friends and you listen to Dhamma, your wholesome fraction grows while the unwholesome declines. So in this way, there are things you should search for and you should not search for, said the Buddha. So, in the case of a monk, what we should not search for is with regard to the four requisites, we should not overly search them. We should not search for praise and gain. Likewise, if we do so, then our unwholesome fraction grows, whereas the wholesome declines, said the Buddha. So it is in this way that how a monk would practice restraint in the monastic code. So again, the Sakka was delighted because he is very wise, the Sakka. He quickly understands this and he is delighted. And he said, I have gone beyond doubt and got rid of any indecision now, Buddha. Then he asked another question. But dear sir, how does a monk practice for restraint of the sense faculties? How a monk practice restraint of the sense faculties? So Buddha goes on to say, God Sakka, Lord of Gods, I say that there are two kinds of forms known by the eye, that which you should cultivate and pursue, and that which you should not cultivate or pursue. Likewise, with regard to the sound, the taste, the tangibles, the smells, the odors, and the thoughts, there are certain aspects you should pursue and certain aspects you should not pursue. So how do you make the distinction there? What to pursue and what not to pursue? So then God Sakka says, he said, okay, I understood what Buddha said in brief. I was able to understand in this in detail. He said, so this is how I understand the detailed meaning of the Buddha's brief statement. He said, you should not cultivate the kind of forms known by the eye which cause the unskillful qualities to grow while skillful qualities to decline. With regard to sounds, it's the same. Say someone comes to you and says, okay, he talks badly of someone else. Okay? Talks ill of someone else. He is so and so, and likewise. Then what happens if you keep continually encouraging him to keep that talk going on? Your mind is also defiled. Your unwholesome fraction arises and the wholesome declines. So those kind of sounds you should not hear. Someone comes to you say, I read a very beautiful sutta or listen to a Dhamma talk and this is what I learned, and tells you the facts of the Dhamma. Then you should again and again ask what happened, what next, likewise. Encourage that you have to continue that discussion, because that sound that you hear will help to develop your wholesome and gradually decline the unwholesome. That is the yardstick. You have to always mindfully observe and see, is this conducive for me to develop the wholesome, or would it decline my wholesome fraction? When I associate with the forms, the sounds, the taste, the flavors, the tangibles, the mind objects. It's the same principle. Okay? That is what God Sakka quickly understood. When Buddha said, this is what I have to do. And then he asked another question. Dear sir, do all ascetics and Brahmins teach of the same ending? Same virtue that culminates in the same ending? Final deliverance and final attainment. That is the next question. Does all ascetics and Brahmins teach for the same goal, the same ending, the same final deliverance, same attainment? Buddha said, no, Lord of Gods. No, God Sakka, they do not. Then he asked, why not? The nature of the beings in this world is that they are of many diverse elements. The beings of the world are different. They are diverse. That means beings of the world are of diverse characters and personalities. Each and every one of us are different. They are diverse. Because of this diverse nature of beings, Buddha says, they take up and pursue different opinions and views. And they obstinately stick to it. and insists this is the only truth. Other ideas are silly. Okay? That's how people come to cling to views. Think, I am correct, this is the truth, what I pursue, the other ideas are silly. They obstinately stick to it, said the Buddha. That is why not all ascetics and Brahmins teach the same ending. Virtue that culminates with the same meaning, final deliverance or final attainment. Then God Sakka asked, dear sir, have all ascetics and Brahmins reached the ultimate end, the ultimate sanctuary from defilement, the ultimate spiritual life, the ultimate goal of the teachings? Have all Brahmins and ascetics achieved this? Buddha said, no, Lord, of course they have not. Then he asked, why not? Buddha says, those mendicants who are freed through the ending of craving have the reached the ultimate. That means those monks, those bhikkhus who are freed through the ending of craving and have reached the ultimate end, the ultimate sanctuary, the ultimate spiritual life, the ultimate goal. They are the ones who are freed of the defilements. So until you eradicate the craving, you are not free. That's why not all ascetics and Brahmins have reached the ultimate end, the ultimate sanctuary, the ultimate spiritual life, the ultimate goal, said the Buddha. So again the God Sakka was delighted. He approved in the Buddha's words. That's so true, Blessed One, that's so true. Having heard your answer, I have gone beyond doubt and got rid of indecision. Then he asked another question. So because now it was said the craving, as long as you do not give up craving, you are not free. He asked, craving, Blessed One, is a disease. He says himself, craving is a disease, it's an abscess, a dart. Craving drags a person to reborn in life after life. Because it is craving that drags a person from one life to the other. That's why a person finds themselves in states in high and low. That means once you find yourself in the heavenly world, once you find yourself in the ghost world, once in the animal world, once in the hell world, again in the human world. So there are the highs and the lows. It is craving that drags you from one life to the other. In the case of Arahants, there are no craving. So they are not reborn. They are not dragged to another life. So, see elsewhere the thing now, apart from the Buddha dispensation, among other ascetics and Brahmins, he says, God Sakka, among other ascetics and Brahmins, I wasn't even given a chance to ask this question that the Buddha has answered, he says. Because he had approached other ascetics and Brahmins and he said, I wasn't even given a chance to ask this question. The dart of doubt and uncertainty has lain within me for a long time. But the Buddha has plucked it out. See how beautiful his words are? He had not got a chance to ask these questions and get answers. So for a long time, he has had this doubt in his mind. And now he says, Buddha has plucked it out. So he says, when Buddha says, Lord of gods, do you recall having asked these questions of other ascetics and Brahmins? He says, yeah, I do, sir. I did ask. Then Buddha says, if it doesn't trouble you, Lord of gods, tell me how they answered. So he says, it's no trouble for me when I am in the presence of the Blessed One, or one that is equal to the Blessed One. Then I am not troubled. Well, speak then, Lord of gods, speak them, tell us. Then he says, Blessed One, Buddha, I approach those who imagine were ascetics and Brahmins. I approach such people that I imagine to be ascetics and Brahmins who lived in the wilderness, in remote lodgings. But they could not answer the questions I posed to them. And they even questioned me in return. They asked me, who are you? I said, I am God Sakka. Ah, you are God Sakka, the Lord of the gods. Then they questioned him. They asked me, what are the meritorious deeds you did to be reborn as God Sakka? How is the heavenly world? Is it true that there is so much of pleasure over there? Likewise, they ask me questions. So I teach them the Dhamma, as how I have learned and memorized. So they actually become my disciples, rather than the other way around. So in this way, they don't ask my questions and answer my question. I answer their question. So they are the disciples while I become the teacher. But that is not the case of the Buddha. Buddha taught me. Buddha answered my questions, gave me the answers. I am the disciple of the Buddha. And at this moment, while this Dhamma discussion was there with the Buddha, I attained the fruition of stream entry. It's very remarkable what happens here. During this Dhamma discussion, God Sakka's lifespan was extended, expanded. That his lifespan in the Devas world was expanded. But before that happened, before that moment, he was able to realize this Dhamma and become stream entered. Therefore, then and there, he was reborn as God Sakka in the same position. Or else he wouldn't be reborn as the God Sakka. He would be reborn in any bad destination or any other place. But because he realized the Dhamma and attained the fruition of stream entry, he then and there was reborn in the same position, spontaneously reborn as God Sakka. Now he says, I am the Buddha's disciple, a stream enterer, not liable to be reborn in the four bad destinations, bound to attain Nibbana. He says. Then Buddha says, now he's very happy, God Sakka. Why? He attained the fruition of stream entry. He says, Lord of gods, do you recall ever feeling such joy and happiness before? He says, I do, sir. When was that? Once upon a time, sir, a battle was fought between the gods and the demons. Demons in the sense, gods, the Sura and Asura, gods and the Titans. So they clashed. In that battle, the gods won over the Asuras. Asuras lost. Then it occurred to me as victor. Then I was the victor in that fight. Now the gods, so that this thought arose him. Now the gods shall enjoy both the nectar of the gods and the nectar of the Titans. That means whatever things they would drink and enjoy at foods, now we can enjoy all that. So that time also I was very happy, he says. But he says that happiness, that joy was born of rod and the sword, because that was a battle won over with swords and weapons. But this battle was won by eradicating defilements, and there is so much more joy, even more so, he says. But the joy and happiness I feel listening to the Buddha's teaching is not in the sphere of the rod and the sword. It does lead to disillusionment, dispassion, cessation, peace, insight, awakening and extinguishment, said the God Sakka. Why? Because he realized the fruition of stream entry. Now he has so much confidence in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, and he will not be reborn in the four bad destinations. And he has the guarantee of attaining Nibbana within 7 rebirths at most. And then Buddha again questions God Sakka, what reason do you see for speaking of such joy and happiness? So explain you there. Then he gives 6 reasons why he is overjoyed at this moment. So one is, he said, while here, right here, my lifespan was expanded. But again I was reborn as God Sakka. That is one thing that happy. And I can see my future. Next life I will be born in the human world. Therefore I am happy, because it's again a Sugati, a good place to be reborn. And there I will not lose my way, because I have the right view. I am a stream entered. And I will further practice the Dhamma. Now he can see his future as well. I will further practice the Dhamma and become a stream entered while as a human. That is also the thing why I am overjoyed at the moment. Then after that life, after passing away from the human life, I will be reborn in the heavenly world and continue to practice the Dhamma. And I will attain the fruition of Anagami, non-return. Then I will be reborn in the Brahma world, and there I will attain Parinibbana. He sees all this, his future, and he is therefore overjoyed, happy. So these are in verses. And then God Sakka calls Panchasika. He is so very happy. So see his gratitude. He shows his gratitude to Panchasika, saying, Dear Panchasika, you were very helpful to me. Since you first charmed the Buddha, after which I sent you, like he charmed the Buddha by playing the harp, and he made the initial connection there. I shall appoint you to your father's position. That means he was made the king of the musician Devas. Not only that, and I give you Suryavachasa, who you love so much. That lady he sang the love song for, the god Sakka is going to make her marry him. Because now he's the also king of the Gandharvas. So in this way, he paid this gratitude. Gratitude is a quality that people who have realized the Dhamma has themselves instilled. Then Sakka, touching the ground with his hand, was inspired to explain 3 times. He said in this way, homage to the Blessed One, the Perfect One, the fully awakened One, the Buddha. Homage to the Blessed One, the Perfect One, the fully awakened One, the Buddha. In the 3 times he paid homage to the Buddha. And it is said, and while this discourse was being spoken, 80,000 devas who were there realized the fruition of stream entry. 80,000 by listening to this Dhamma discourse. So this is the Sakkapañha Sutta, the Sakka's question to the Buddha and how he answered.